Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am so incredibly excited for today's guest. He's a soldier, an artist, and the man who taught the world how to be prepared. For those who may somehow not know who you are, who are you?
Hello, Calvin. I am Robert Baden-Powell, though most of my friends and millions of young people around the world simply call me BP. I've worn many hats, literally and figuratively, from a lieutenant general in the British Army to the chief scout of the world.
A man of many titles. Let's go back to the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born on the 22nd of February, 1857, in a part of London called Paddington.
And what was your given name at birth?
I was actually christened Robert Stevenson Smith Powell.
Powell. So there is a story behind your name becoming Baden-Powell, isn't there?
Spot on. My father was a professor at Oxford named Baden-Powell. When I was just 3 years old, he passed away. My mother, Henrietta Grace Smith, was a remarkably strong and clever woman. To honor his memory, and perhaps give us children a bit of a leg up with a more distinguished-sounding name, she gathered his first name and our last name together. So, we all became the Baden-Powells.
That's a wonderful tribute. What was your hometown like growing up in London?
London was bustling, of course, but my heart was always in the bits of nature I could find. I was the youngest of 7 children still at home, so it was a very lively, large family life. We didn't have much money after my father died, but my mother made sure we had adventures. My brothers and I would spend our holidays yachting, canoeing, and camping. Those were the days that truly shaped me.
It sounds like you were quite the adventurous spirit. What kind of kid were you in school?
Oh, I was a bit of a scamp, I suppose. I attended Charterhouse on a scholarship. While I was supposed to be in the classroom, I'd often sneak into the woods behind the school to practice stalking. I'd catch and cook rabbits over a small fire, making sure the smoke didn't give me away to the masters. I also loved the arts. I played the piano and the violin, and I was even an ambidextrous artist. I could draw with both hands at once.
That is an incredible skill. Did you have any big fears back then?
I think my biggest fear was the idea of a quote-unquote sitting down life. I dreaded the thought of being idle or useless. I dreamed of being an explorer or a frontiersman, someone who was always prepared for whatever the wild threw at them.
You definitely avoided the sitting down life. What was your first job?
My first real job was joining the Army. I didn't actually get into university because I spent a bit too much time in the woods and not enough at my desk. But I took the Army exam and did so well, I was commissioned straight into the 13th Hussars. I was off to India as a young sub-lieutenant before I knew it.
Was there a moment in your early career where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I realized early on that I had a knack for scouting and reconnaissance. While others followed the rigid manuals, I preferred to use my eyes and my wits. I found that I could teach soldiers to think for themselves, to be independent, and to survive in the wilderness. It felt natural to me, but it seemed quite revolutionary to the old guard.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Writing a little manual called Aids to Scouting for Army recruits. I just wanted to help my men survive. I had no idea that back home in England, teachers and youth leaders were buying it up for children. That small handbook was the spark that eventually led to the entire scout movement.
And of course, we have to talk about your biggest break. Was that the siege of Mafeking?
Indeed. During the Boer War, we were trapped in the town of Mafeking for 217 days, surrounded by an army that vastly outnumbered us. We had to use every trick in the book, fake minefields, non-existent barbed wire, anything to keep them at bay. But the real break was seeing the Mafeking Cadet Corps. These young boys carried messages and helped in the hospitals with such courage and cheerfulness. They proved to me that young people thrive when given responsibility.
What were your biggest struggles before that success?
In the early days of the siege, the weight of responsibility for all those lives was immense. There were moments of doubt, certainly, but I never considered quitting. I always told my men, Softly, softly, catchy monkey. Basically, don't flurry, have patience, and we will gain the day.
I love that. Softly, softly, catchy monkey. Were there any specific daily habits you felt were essential to your success?
I'm a firm believer in starting the day with a smile and a whistle. I also made it a habit to do a good turn every single day, no matter how small. And of course, keeping physically fit. A boy, or a man, is not a sitting down animal.
If fame had never happened, what job do you think you would have had?
I likely would have stayed in the woods as a naturalist or perhaps a professional artist. I always felt most at peace with a sketchbook in my hand and the sun on my back.
Did fame bring you happiness, or was there a downside?
Fame is a funny thing. It gave me a platform to start scouting, which brought me immense joy, but I was always a bit shy. The hero of Mafeking business was a lot to carry. People sometimes misunderstood me. They thought I was just a stern military man, but I've always been more of a jolly fellow at heart.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I passed away on January 8th, 1941, in Nyeri, Kenya. I was 83.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I once went on a scouting mission in the Balkans disguised as a butterfly collector. I hid sketches of enemy fortifications inside the drawings of butterfly wings. If I was caught, I'd just look like a harmless, eccentric Englishman chasing insects.
That is genius. Now, what about your favorite things? What was your favorite food?
Oh, nothing beats a simple meal cooked over an open fire. But if I had to pick, I've always been partial to a good stew. Something hearty that sticks to your ribs after a long day of trekking.
What was your favorite book?
I was always very fond of Peter Pan. In fact, in my final message to the scouts, I mentioned how the pirate chief was always making his dying speech because he was afraid he wouldn't have time to get it off his chest. It's a wonderful story about the spirit of youth.
You spent your final years in a very special place. Tell us about that.
I spent my last years in Nyeri, Kenya. I had a cottage there called Pakstu with a view of Mount Kenya. It was peaceful and beautiful, a perfect place for an old scout to rest. I was 83 when I finally went home, as we say in the trail signs.
What advice would you give people chasing success today?
Don't chase success for the sake of being rich or famous. Happiness comes from being healthy and useful. The real way to get happiness is by giving out happiness to other people. Try and leave this world a little better than you found it.
That is a perfect note to end on. BP, do you have any closing remarks or stories you'd like to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Just this. Life is a jolly adventure if you choose to see it that way. Look on the bright side of things instead of the gloomy one. Be contented with what you have and make the best of it. And remember, be prepared. Not just for accidents, but to live a happy life. Thank you for having me, Calvin. It's been a grand chat.
Thank you so much, BP. What a legendary conversation. From butterfly collecting spies to the siege of Mafeking and the birth of the scouting movement, Robert Baden-Powell truly lived a life of adventure and service. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.